Mental health includes our emotional, psychological and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel and act. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood.
Mental health has come to be very stigmatised, mostly through the negative and limited portrayal in the media of people who suffer. They are a common human experience, and most people will know someone who has experienced a mental health problem.
We have arranged to talk to some young people who live with mental health problems, to see how they deal with their issues and how to seek help.
I'm Ellie. I'm 17. I have really bad social anxiety. I'm doing what it is, it's like in between A-levels and GCSEs. Because there's just constantly something there that you can't get rid of. And it's always, I don't know, it's quite draining. Because with mine, I get panic attacks and they're very overwhelming. I'm not very good at speaking to people or speaking in social situations, and I get very anxious with them and tend to overthink situations. I think I was about 13, 14, but I didn't realise it was a problem at first. I kind of assumed everyone was the same as I was, and I was just kind of overreacting a little bit. I didn't really have any ideas about what was happening, or because I didn't really know much about mental health or anything, so I was quite confused. I kind of spoke to my mum about it, but the school brought it up to her, and then she I talked to her a bit about it, and then she kind of brought it up more and figured I should probably do something about it, because I didn't really think I needed help or anything. I just didn't kind of realise. So I went to the doctors, and then they have to refer you to wherever you need to kind of go, and it can take a while. It took ages to get a referral, but once everything's done and you're actually getting the help, it's really good, and it's never going to go away, and I'm never going to be normal, I don't know if that's the right kind of wording, but it's definitely improved and it's a lot better now. I've got help, and I would say definitely speak to someone or get help, even if you don't think it's that big of a problem. You just still talk to someone about it and see if there's anything you can do, because it does help.
We are now going to talk to Kirsty, who suffers from depression.
My name is Kirsty Frampton and I am 25 years old. Living with a mental health problem has been quite sort of a journey for me. I was only diagnosed 2.5 years ago, but retrospectively I can see that I was suffering for a long time before that. At first it was really difficult because I was a teenager and I didn't understand what it was. I just kind of felt like there was something wrong with me that wasn't necessarily an illness, it was just something fundamental about me. So with my depression I can go through periods of just being really low. I don't want to get out of bed on a bad day. I just lie there and I think, what's the point? It's very difficult because, people that don't necessarily understand it will just say, come on, get dressed, go out, you'll feel better once you're up kind of thing, and it's not that easy. As well as having the low points, I can be really, really high as well. Sometimes there's a reason that I feel low and I feel depressed. Sometimes there's absolutely not. And that's, I think, what can be more difficult to deal with, because if you know what's wrong and why you feel like that, you can do something about it. Whereas if you feel like it and you don't understand why, there's only so much that you can do to help yourself. I think when I was probably about 14 or 15 was when I started to notice the symptoms, and I just thought, it's me, it's something that's wrong with me. Getting paranoid about what people think about you and thinking, well, why would anyone like me or care about me? And I just kind of accepted it as where my life was going at that time. It was quite scary. I think then when I was formally diagnosed 2.5 years ago, I really started to read up on it and learn about the symptoms that are less obvious, that people don't necessarily know about. My mum was probably the first person that I spoke to about it. She suffered with depression for as long as I can remember, so it was actually her that approached me and said, look, I think that maybe you're suffering from depression because of, XYZ symptom that I have as well, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that, and there's help out there for you, and I will go with you to the doctor. It's helped me massively to have seeked professional help, because initially when I thought I'm just going crazy, it was kind of nice to have that reassurance that you're not, you have an illness, but that there's so much help and support out there. So it was just great to know that actually this is fine, this is something that we can deal with. There's medication, there's counselling, there's not just one thing that can fix you as such, but there's so many different things out there that you can try. So it was a real relief, it was a weight off my shoulder to know that it wasn't just me going through it, because when you're feeling depression, it is such a lonely experience. My mental health now is definitely more manageable now that I've learned so much more about it. Now that I can see the triggers and I know what helps and what doesn't help. I think most importantly, you aren't alone. It feels like you are, but you're not. There are people out there who understand, that can help, that want to help. Asking for help can be the hardest thing in the world when you're suffering from mental illness, but you'd be surprised how easy it is, and as soon as you do it, it's such a relief. So I started the blog when I was first diagnosed with depression. It was initially something that was just for me, and then as I was talking to more and more people about my diagnosis, I was so sort of taken aback by how supportive people were, and they would open up to me and say, oh, I've been through a similar thing, and I kind of thought, hey, actually, this is such a bigger thing than just me. So I decided to start sharing it, and everything just blew up from there. Really, I had such a positive response, so many people contacting me saying, this is great that you're being so open about it, and I thought I was alone, but I'm not. People sending me direct messages as well, so it was more on a private level, saying thank you so much, like this has been so helpful. It's like you're inside my mind and you're writing everything down that I feel.
Our final young person is Harry, a college student who also suffers from depression.
Hello, my name's Harry Haynes. I'm 19 years of age and I'm currently suffering from depression. I would say living with a mental health problem, sometimes it depends on what days, you sort of have good days and bad days. But some days you don't really know what to do with yourself in a way, you don't know where to be, who to be, who you are. When something isn't maybe a big deal, it becomes a huge deal when it really isn't. And then obviously, when you fixate on it more and more, it becomes much more of an issue. I'd say the peak of it would be 16, and then from then on, I was struggling with it. But maybe 15, I was starting to see signs of it. I didn't really know what was happening to me. I was sort of trying to find out, trying to think maybe it's this, maybe it's that, or whatever, First person I spoke to about it, I'd say, was my mother, because I can speak to my mum about pretty much everything, and she's been through a lot of the exact same stuff that I've gone through, so she kind of completely gets it. I've got a counsellor at the moment, which I've been seeing for a good couple of years now, and life has got a lot easier, to be able to speak, to be able to cut yourself off from everything else, and being in a room with another person which isn't going to judge you. It's just nice to just get into this room and then be able just to explain about whatever you want to talk about and have someone not judge you for that, It's really cool, it's good, definitely helps. My mental health now is a lot better than it was before. There's obviously certain things that I need to be stopped doing, I suppose, to have it better, to look after myself a little bit better, so that obviously my mental health improves. But yeah, thinking about it, it's so much better than it was before. And I feel it was just down to sort of help and I suppose gaining strength together for myself mentally, to be able to get over certain things and just to push on, I suppose, I'm one of those people which literally thought that I was on my own for such a long time. until, you know, like people started opening up, like friends even started opening up towards like about like their stuff. So yeah, but just don't think you're on your own, because you're not. Like, there's always going to be help there for you, and it's just the power of the mind. But yeah, just like look after your mental health, I think. Look after your brain more than anything, as much as you possibly can do, because it's the most important organ you've got in your body.
In 2014, there were 6,581 suicides in the UK and Ireland, with suicide rates increasing over the years.
Expert advice may help you or others around you who may be suffering from mental health. We are going to talk to a mental health campaigner, Kevin, on how to get help for mental illness.
My name's Kevin Betts. I'm a personal trainer and I specialise in working with people with mental health conditions and also supporting mental health charities. I think, like most people who haven't experienced mental health conditions, I knew nothing really about them until my dad got really poorly. So when I was about 14, my dad suffered with depression, and it came to a head when I was 19 and went to university, and he killed himself. And once I'd recovered from that huge kind of pivotal moment in my life, I realised that I wanted to try and help people to not kill themselves, and him dying made me realise that life is so precious that people shouldn't ever experience suicide. There's such a huge stigma associated with mental health, and it's one of my genuine life dreams. You know, within my lifespan, I want to see how mental health is perceived to completely change, and I think that it already has started to change. But I think young people are, I don't want to sound like a politician, but the young people are the future. And if they carry with them an idea that it's okay to talk about mental health, their children will talk about mental health, and so on and so forth. And we can really affect that by getting young people to speak up and to say, you know what, it's actually completely fine to have some sort of mental health problem. I think if any young person feels like they might have a mental health condition, that they are suffering or just that they don't feel right, my advice is simply to talk to someone, pretty much anyone. And it sounds really cliched, but you know, if you go to any responsible adult, then a responsible adult will hopefully be able to direct you into the places you want to go. Mental health conditions aren't uncommon. They're so common and normal. It's just that people hide them and they don't talk about them. And I'm not saying people should go around singing about all of their illnesses, but if it becomes this normalised thing that, you know, like a standard illness like glandular fever or broken arm, and it's something that you can talk about, then more people will seek the help that they need. I think it's really important that young people realise that you don't have to diagnose yourself, you don't have to think about what you might have, and you don't have to go to a doctor and say, I think I might suffer with anxiety or personality disorder or, you know, something like that. It's their job to help with the diagnosis, and you can simply go to a doctor and say, I don't feel right. And the doctor will help you. GPs are so much better trained now in mental health, and they're so supportive. Gone are the days of people being institutionalised, gone are the days of people having jobs taken away from them or caring responsibilities taken away from them, and gone are the days of people looking at you differently. You know, it's okay to talk about that stuff, and it's actually a positive thing, and you can become a role model. I think anyone who thinks that their friend or a family member or a loved one, or even a person they kind of know but not really that well, you know, someone in your form, anything like that, if their personality has changed, if you think they're struggling, if you've seen them crying, if they've been upset, if you've noticed the smallest change in the way they are, say, are you alright? Ask someone, are you okay? Do you want a coffee? You don't need to be a professional to love someone. You don't need to have some sort of immense training and a 3-year degree to be able to say to someone, I've noticed you've changed a little. I think every young person has a responsibility to care for themselves first and foremost. But every young person has a responsibility to also look after, care for and love their friends and their family.
Help can be the hardest thing to get when suffering from a mental health issue. However, it can change lives. A simple Google search can bring up online communities, support groups, and details of local help you can seek. Mental health is important through every stage of life. Take care of yourself and your mental health.